In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create this festival style makeup and body art.
Living the moment till I die, and I'm gonna chase it, and I'm gonna chase it. I know we can't ignore it, no matter how hard we try. And I'm gonna chase it, and I'm gonna chase it.
My model had already done all her skincare that morning, so I just started right in with the brows, and I used the Black Heart Beauty brow soap and then just a spoolie on the end of a brow pencil. I then used the Morphe brow powder in a blonde shade and just filled in the tail end of the brow. Next, I used the P. Louise base with shade number 1 and the P. Louise base brush, which is number 7072, and I just spread that all underneath the brow to give it a little bit more structure, and then I dragged down any excess product onto the lid. I finished off by patting the brow just to seal it all in and set the base, and then I actually shaped the top of the brow slightly as well. Sometimes I like to use a fluffy brush over the rest of the base, again just to help set it a little better so it's not too sticky or wet. Next, I used the Stacey Marie Carnival XL Pro palette with the shade Influence on a pencil brush. I started by patting in the pigment to really build up that colour, and then just used circular motions around the outside just to blur it out slightly. I then repeated this on the other lid until I had something that I was happy with. Next, I used the shade Reckless from the same palette on a different pencil brush and just kind of highlighted that outer triangle of the eye to give that more rounded look to it. I then used a fluffy blending brush and just buffed out all my edges so it was really nice and soft. Next, I went in with the P. Louise base again. Sometimes I do use a little bit of eye makeup remover on a spatula to carve out this shape first, but this time I just went straight in with the base over the top of the eyeshadow. I then dragged out some of the base into the actual eyeshadow itself, and then used another smaller pencil brush just to buff the edges into the base so that I didn't spread it too far to the outer corners of the eye. Next, I've taken a small precision brush and I'm using the shade Orchid, which is a shimmer shade in the same Stacey Marie palette. I press that all over the P. Louise base, and then I just finish off with the Peaches and Cream Fantasy pigment, just patting that over the top of the shimmer shade I'd already put down. Then I cleaned up underneath the eye just to get rid of any fallout from the glitter pigment. Next, I took the P. Louise base shade 1 again, and I just buffed that all underneath the eye to give my underneath eyeshadow something to stick to. And using a smudger brush with the shade Reckless, just kind of underlined the eye. I got her to look in a different direction so that I could shade the inner corner of the eye too. Then I took a fluffy brush and blended out all my edges. Next, I took the Maybelline gel eyeliner on an angled brush and I just filled in the waterline slightly. Using the Black Heart Beauty liquid eyeliner pen, I added on some winged eyeliner. I chose a shape that was quite small for this client's eyes. I did this so that you could see the rest of the eye makeup when she has her eye open, so that the actual eyeliner itself wouldn't take over the entire eye. You'll notice that when I'm drawing the eyeliner on, that I do kind of stretch the lid out slightly, and that's just so that I can get a really nice fluid line without it dragging. I'm using some unicorn lashes in the design Clementine, and what I did was I resized them to fit this client's eyes, so I just trimmed off from the outside of the lash, and then I applied some Duo lash adhesive, which is latex free, left it to dry for around 20 to 30 seconds, and stuck it onto the lid. Now I'm using the Becca Cosmetics Shimmering Skin Perfector liquid in the shade Moonstone, and this is going to sit underneath my foundation and give it a really nice glow all over the face. Now I'm using my foundation, which is the NARS Sheer Glow in the shade Mont Blanc, and I'm putting it on with a concealer brush, and in a second you'll see me buff it out with a buffing foundation brush. I did also carve out the top of the brows just to give them a little bit more structure this time, and then I finished by buffing the foundation towards the edges of the face. I do tend to put most of my foundation in the middle of the face and then buff out towards the edges so it's thinner and it has a nicer blend. I use a range of pulling and patting motions, and this just helps the foundation to kind of give it that flawless look and also to set it slightly as well. Now I've taken the infallible L'Oreal concealer and I've just added a little bit underneath the eyes, slightly down the middle of the nose, across the forehead and the top of the lips, and I think I also added a little bit onto the chin as well. So these are just to highlight a few features of her face and really bring them forwards, and also to add definition, which is going to stand out later on when I start adding the bronzer as well. I used a Real Techniques fluffy brush and I just blended all of this out, especially underneath the eyes, so I'd use a mixture of swiping motions and patting motions just to buff out my edges, make sure everything's really soft and blended into the foundation. I also added a tiny bit of this lighter concealer underneath her cheekbone because again, when I come to put the bronzer on, this is just going to make them stand out even more. Now I'm using the Lottie London bronzer in the shade light to medium, and I'm using a mixture of buffing and swiping motions to get a really nice soft finish on that powder. I also took a little bit along the jawline and on the nose just to warm up other areas of the face, also along the top of the forehead as well. Next, I went in with the Morphe blusher palette, using a couple of the lighter pink shades and the highlighter shades from that, and then I moved on to my body art application. So I'm using a Neo for Eye Water airbrush and the Kryolan TC501C air compressor. I'm using the Mist Air Mist FX airbrush body paints, and I'm starting off with the dark aqua colour. I'm just spraying this on randomly in a few places across her neck, shoulders, arms and chest, and this is going to help me create this really nice mottled design later on. I did also take it up onto the face slightly because I wanted the makeup to join with the body art design. I used my hand in a few areas just to create a soft masking effect, and that way I had more control over the actual colour that was coming from the airbrush gun. I then went in with a pink shade which I made by mixing the red and white colours from the Mist FX range, and I just mixed these colours together with about 50% paint and 50% water in my cup. I really like these paints because they last a really long time and you can mix them down into a thinner consistency using distilled water. And then I just sprayed in those places where there was any skin showing, again taking it onto the face just to match the design that I'd done on the body too. Now I'm using a stencil, which again is from Mist Air, but you can easily make your own with paper or card or plastic, and I'm just spraying around this just to give that really nice swirly design. And you'll probably notice as well that when I use my airbrush, I keep it pointed down at a 45-degree angle, just so that no paint falls back into the gun. Next, I'm using another stencil. This one is a Badass mini stencil from the mermaid section, and I'm just using this and scattering them all across the body just to add a little bit more texture to my design. Now my absolutely favourite part, I'm using the Meron Gold Pigment with the Meron mixing solution, and I've mixed them up on my palette, and I'm just using a brush just to drip this from underneath the jawline. I usually like to spread this everywhere, it's one of my favourite products to use, especially in body art. Now if you mix this nice and thin, then it'll give that really nice dripping effect, and you can just add little droplets to it to push it down further. I also took this across the shoulders and slightly down the arms as well, and then later on I did add a little bit onto the forehead. Now I'm using some hair gel and I'm just patting that all across the body in the places where I'm going to be applying glitter. I prefer to use hair gel to glitter fix gel or aloe vera gel or even Vaseline, just because of the way it dries and it's actually a lot easier to remove afterwards. Because my paint is water based, you'll see that some of the paint is coming off underneath the hair gel, so I'm just making sure to be really careful when I'm applying it. And then I'm just using some Shrine Chunky glitter. I don't know the shade of it unfortunately, as it didn't come with stickers on it, but I pat that on to the body using my fingers, just following the shape that I'd put down with the hair gel. And you can create any shapes you want to with this, and mix as many colours as you want to. Finally, to finish off, I'm just going to shade in the lips. I'm using the Peaches and Cream lip liner in Praline, and I overline the top of her Cupid's bow and the bottom of the lip in the middle, and then I just join it up to a natural lip line so that it doesn't look too exaggerated. I then filled in the whole lips with this lip liner and applied a gloss to finish. And this is the finished result. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you want to see more, just let me know.